Hey, welcome back to the channel. And in this video, I will talk about how there is no fun in getting good at life. And here's why. Okay, and disclaimer before we actually get started into the video. Okay, I admit that the title and the first sentence sounds a bit bold of a statement, sounds a bit outrageous, but I have my reason. And here's why. If you if you really do try to get good at something, a skill, then you will then you know this and you realize that the only part that is fun in learning new skill is when, or for most people, is when you first get into that new thing. And so because when you're new, the everything you do is new and you're learning everything new. And so you're learning from the easiest thing to like the next somewhat a little harder, but then not that much much harder. And then it's just like a bunch of series of easy action and easy win. And that's the only part that it's fun about learning new skills. And then when you have spent a fair amount of time on the new skills and you start to get to know the skills more, you to get to know the field, the topic more, that's when things get more serious because now you can gauge where you are on the like how good you are compared to others, compared to the vast range of knowledge and depth of the skill of the topic. That's when it starts to get not fun because now you are aware of how bad you are, and regardless of that, you still need to take practice anyway, right? You need to do most likely the same thing all over again, and a lot of the time that same thing, taking that same action, becomes boring. It becomes you don't really feel excited to get into the thing anymore because you would think in your head like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do the same thing all over again, and I know how that feels like because I did it yesterday or I did the same thing the day before. So you already have this like preconceived idea in your head of how it might feel, and then you're gonna start judging how boring it would get and stuff. But also, you gotta be constantly looking at your flaws and admit your flaws, that you're bad, because only then you're able to become better. Because if one person ego is too big and they think that they are good, then most likely they will never improve, right? And so you just gotta keep looking at how bad you are doing things, and then you just do it anyway. And as you do it more, then you get better, and then you can get to have more fun. But the point is, you don't get to have fun first because you're bad at it at first. There's no fun in being bad at doing things. And then you only get to have fun as you become better. But then you have to be willing to sit in the pain to be bad first. That's the whole point. Now I'm just talking in circle. And an example, and honestly, I made that sounds harder than it is because let's take a look at this example. For me, when I focus on doing the new things, and even when I'm aware that I'm bad, and then, okay, let me give you an example, but I hope that it's good enough of an example for you to understand, because it's an example about playing video games. I don't know if people can relate well enough to this example, but in playing a shooting game against other real players, one thing I learned is, regardless of the game you play, when you get into combat of the other person, usually you would want to stand next to a piece of cover. So, and then when you want to damage them, when you want to attack the enemy, you would peek out, and then when you want to retreat, the piece of cover is already next to you, so you can just duck in and get away from their sight. That way you don't like constantly be taking damage, right? Compared to if you were to just stand in the middle of nowhere, then when they shoot you, you have nowhere to run because you're like in the middle of an empty area where there's nothing to block the incoming damage to you. And so that's the one of the things I learned in playing shooting game. And when I want to get good at that skill in the different games I play, usually what I would do is I would repeating the same thing in my head all over again and again, and I basically just remind myself to find a piece of cover to stand next to. So in my head, and this is what I do, this is how it would feel like if you were me, I would keep talking to myself that, okay, find a piece of cover, find a piece of cover, find a piece of cover, and I would repeat that same thing to myself all over again. And so while repeating that in my head, on my screen I would be constantly looking for a piece of cover, because that's the only thing that I'm telling to myself. And so all of my attention goes to hearing myself talking and finding a piece of cover on the screen. And so I don't have any capacity to pay attention on other things, meaning because that's all my attention goes to. I don't have the time to notice how bad I'm doing it, even though I would probably look really stupid because I would just running around and find a piece of cover, even if that piece of cover is like really far in the front line. So it's like a bad piece of cover anyway, because even if I'm standing next to the wall, that piece of wall is still in the middle of all the enemies. But then, hey, as long as I'm standing next to a piece of cover, that's all I'm focusing on. So I didn't really care about how bad I was doing it. The only thing I knew is that I was executing the task, and that was all I focused on. And maybe this is something you could do too. And it's an example about me playing video game, but if you focus on the task like that in learning new things, then I don't think learning new things and taking new action and practicing is that bad, because you don't really have any capacity to focus your attention on anyway. You kind of become like a robot almost. And that is it. I delivered this message pretty bad, but that's okay, I think. If you like to what you are seeing and you want to see more similar content, then click up here for the latest upload. That's it.